Free speech. Pesky. Something tells me when free speech was first being mulled over at an Athenian orgy some 3,000 years ago, its proponents likely never envisioned having to decide if the president of the most powerful country on earth inciting his supporters to storm the US Capitol in a bid to thwart democracy constitutes free speech or not. Any thoughts on that one, Socrates? Said former US president who, in case your mind has blocked out the last 4 years, is this man, has been banned and or suspended from social media. Because apparently, incitement of deadly riot on US Capitol is where the tech companies draw the line. A bunch of coalition MPs, though, weren't so sure, claiming something free speech. Dave Sharma wrote a whole piece about it, arguing
Twitter's decision to ban Donald Trump is chilling if you care about free speech.
Josh Frydenberg said that the ban made him uncomfortable.
Freedom of speech is fundamental to our society. As Voltaire said, I might not agree with what you say, but I defend the right to say it.
Michael McCormack, honestly no idea what he was talking about.
102,000 names on the War Memorial in Canberra, edged into that bronze who fought so that we could have a democratic country, so that we could speak freely, and it's every freeborn person's right to be able to uphold that freedom of speech, and I do stick by that.
Okay. Just on Voltaire though, love him, but he wasn't exactly living in a society where anyone, including the most unhinged among us, could share a thought, feeling, opinion, mood, vibe, and or hunch at any time on a myriad public platforms, all of which allow for the unprecedented spread of information. Anyway, I digress. Back to the arguments of the free speech brigade, which, truth be told, I partly agree with. Thing is, I reckon those espousing the arguments also just partly agree with themselves. See, I have a right to free speech can either be the rallying cry of the marginalised or something that you might hear Craig Kelly say through tears as he sits in the naughty corner of the PM's office. You'll remember Reckless Kelly was told whatever the prime ministerial equivalent of shut the f*** up is for peddling misinformation about COVID vaccines on social media. Now, maybe this was a face-saving exercise for the PM because Kelly continued
posting COVID Facebook posts despite dressing down over COVID Facebook posts.
Regardless, having to berate your MPs for social media smack talk does present a wee pickle for the coalition, who love to bang on about individual freedom of speech, but who know, just as their electorate does, that free speech is not, nor has it ever been, unequivocally free. No country in the world gives its citizens the unassailable right to say whatever they want, whenever they want, to whomever they want, sans repercussion. If speech isn't governed by laws around defamation, contempt, copyright, incitement of violence, sexual harassment, hate speech, false advertising, and others, it's governed by company and or organisational regulation, i.e. your boss Scott telling you that you can't say that. And here's a fun fact, we don't actually have a right to freedom of speech in Australia, which sounds weird, but is true. What we have is an implied constitutional right to freedom of political communication. Now, I don't know what that means, but the High Court has been trying to clarify it for 30 years, most recently in the 2019 case of Comcare versus Banerjee.
As has been emphasised by this court repeatedly, the implied freedom of political communication is not a personal right of free speech.
See? Now, bear with me here while I go on a mild detour about this case. Michaelia Banerjee was a Federal Immigration Department employee who claimed that she was unlawfully sacked in 2013 for anonymously tweeting criticism of the government's asylum seeker policy. In 2018, the Administrative Appeals Tribunal sided with Ms. Banerjee, saying her
anonymous Twitter criticism protected by free speech.
You'd think the Free Speech Brigade would have popped the champers at this point. Instead,
Attorney General intervenes to send Australian Public Service free speech case to High Court,
where
public servant loses free speech High Court case over tweets.
An outcome the President of Civil Liberties Australia argued was
a dark day for freedom of speech.
Where are all the coalition free speech is my girlfriend MPs? Laying a bit low, eh? Because in this case, the coalition did everything it could to ensure that certain people remain prevented from saying certain things on certain platforms, especially if and when those things are critical of the government. Free speech warrior George Christensen once called for presenter Yasmin Abdel-Magied to be sacked from her taxpayer-funded job at the ABC for a questionable Facebook post, the art of which he appears to have mastered in his taxpayer-funded job. Thing is, if you go onto his Facebook page, there's an entire list of reasons as to why you can't just say anything you want on social media, because of course you can't. And we haven't even mentioned the AFP raids on journalists that the PM was not troubled by, all of which have massive implications for whistleblowers. I told you it was pesky. Maybe that's why some people are just selective in the type of free speech they support. Honestly, where's Socrates when you need him?